Hello guys, and today we are back with looking at some community games suggested to me on Discord. And so let's just look at the very first game on our list. And this one is played between these two players. And let's just have a very quick look at their initial deployment and their army compositions. Now looking at blue, they seem to have something close to the divers build. Which, they're having 2 12-pounders, 1 horse artillery, 5 guards, a bunch of line infantry and some decent cavalry. Well, red actually is really close to the general quantity build. They only have these 2 artilleries, they also have very few guards and a large cavalry force. Also, just based on their initial deployment, I think that red started off more developed. Just look at this loose formation. I love loose formations. They are amazing. Anytime you are out of melee combat, they are almost a must. Because if you leave your troops close together, they may suffer from the area damage of artilleries. And yet Blue's standpoint is also completely reasonable. They just keep their troops close together for now, and only deploy once they have reached their designation, their chosen place of battle. And so let's really quickly take a look at how each player would like the battle to play out. As you see, red is moving all of their infantry corps along with their artillery on this very nice isolated hill where they could enjoy the advantage of the high ground and force blue to pick a fight on this valley over here. And yet, strangely enough, they move their cavalry completely far away from the battle site, and I have no clue why. They could have kept their cavalry a bit closer to the enemy, just moving them south like here on this valley. They could have gained a lot of ground over here and then threatened blues on units later on. But regardless, it's kind of fine for now, because blue is still very far away from red's lines, and so red still has time to turn around their cavalry and take a good position. Also, the reason why they moved their cavalry so far away might be because they were wary of blue's artillery, so they just looked at this radius and decided that they would have to move somewhere outside the circle. And so they picked this good location where they wouldn't be able to get hit by enemy artillery. And once blue moves closer to red, they can actually activate themselves and do some very bad stuff to them. And so looking at how the battle continues, we can see how each side develops. Blue has to decommit their cavalry for a bit, and now they move in with their horse artillery, but is now turning their cavalry around, as blue is just about to set up their line. There you go, now blue is in a semi-loose formation. It finally happened, while red is still trying to form their later on formation around this hill. Blue has managed to pick a very strong and aggressive position to assault that hill. Blue controls this forest, they control this hill down over here, and they might even be able to take these houses over here. But of course, red has some other plans, and red will try to use their cavalry in a very aggressive manner. Now blue is aware of the cavalry threat on the left, and so they will have to set up their own garrisons to deal with the enemy cavalry. However, if they were to put their garrisons, really close to their main line, so let's say somewhere over here, and they move their artillery over here and over here. Wait, let's put some axes down there, there we go. Then they would be at the risk of enemy fire shooting at them and hitting both of their lines at the same time, kinda like this. Or that would look more like this, whatever, you get it. It would look something like this, and then that would also get damage over there, but whatever. And so to avoid this, blue will try to establish a second line further away from their main front line, and this way red couldn't deal some double damage on them. But this has a very big risk that if red is able to get past their guards, they cannot stop them before they would destroy their artillery. And surely enough, let's just have this game play out. Over here, blue rushes into place with their guards and with their cavalry, while red is doing the must-do cavalry move. Just look at blue's current formation. They have all of their cavalry and most of their great units defending the back ranks. This has exposed the rest of blue's units to a fallout charge by this monstrous force that red controls. If red could keep these units pinned on the back, then they could squeeze and crush blue's remaining units on the front. However, blue is really lucky with this terrain because they got this amazingly placed village where they could try to slow down the enemy with the support of their artillery over here and on the hill. There is a real chance that red's attack would work out, but it will be a very close fight regardless, so let's just see how it goes down. And look at that, red's cavalry has indeed managed to get through blue's lines, and now there's nothing stopping him from reaching the artillery. And surely enough, the village is now under a siege, and look at this blue blob over here. A massive concentration of units which could all be exposed to a very well coordinated micro damage, multi damage fire by the artillery and by the infantry alike. It could be devastating for blue if red plays it right. Not to mention how much of a control red now has on this hill as well, and they will soon be in the forest if blue doesn't do anything to stop them. However, blue is still holding strong in the village. Red sent some more reinforcements in to have the siege, but blue is holding strong. And if you look at the trends on the rest of the front line, red's attack on the left is not doing super great. Red had actually moved in with their cavalry way too soon, and now blue's very strong guard units are able to fight on the front line. While red has lost all of their cavalry, they are all routing now. However, the only place where red still has an advantage is on the right. If red is able to break through here, they may be able to win. Also, they have forced blue's artillery to relocate from the hill, and they have also destroyed another one, so they might be advantageous in this position. Surely enough, if we play this out, surely enough, if red was to decommit and force blue into a long-lasting battle, they might be able to wear them down just because of their artillery advantage. However, red feels that they have to push with all that they can, and they may be right. Look at how many weakened units does blue have. If red can crush them while they have the chance, red might be able to turn this battle around. And as long as red believes that they can control the tempo of this battle, then they might have a chance of victory. Look at that, they just managed to break blue's defense at the village. That is a massive victory for red. However, their lines over here are still crumbling. The only thing going decently well for red is their assault in the forest. They might be able to break this guard's defense in the next few turns. However, they will also have to deal with some of blue's units rejoining the fight. But even then, red is still not completely lost. If you look at some of blue's units, this guy has probably like 1 HP. This guy has like 2 HP or so. This guy is also very worn down. If red was able to quickly destroy some of these units, they will actually have about the same amount of troops on the battle site. Plus, red now has control over this village. They could use it to slow down any counterattack attempt from blue. so that they may reorganize their lines before the battle gets any crazier. However, as you play the battle, red keeps the pressure on, hoping to break some of blue's weakened units. And surely enough, they succeed at first, but they get into a very bad position. Red is now taking double micro damage from this guard in the forest, and their lines are destined to fall. At this point I can let the game play out for a bit, because as you see, red has lost this game at this point. They had some very great attempts, they played decently, but their attacks just fell apart, and yet, unfortunately, their timing was just a little bit off. Now, something interesting you might learn from this battle is the concept of macro and micro moves. Macro moves are the general plans, the ideas that you have for the whole of the battle site, such as setting up some lines of defense, some lines of advance, coming up with plans to flank the enemy. And so on the other hand, micro moves only concern the moves and things of individual units. So for example, when you do some micro damage, that is a micro move. When you garrison your artillery, that is a macro move. But when you aim with your cannons so that you would shoot the most units, that is also a micro move. And in such a chaotic battle, where at some point there was no front lines, the battle was almost completely controlled by micro moves from the moment that both sides' lines have crumbled. This battle was mainly a micro battle. Now, micro battles are actually pretty great if you want to beat a macro player. In fact, that is how I beat the 6th best player in Lines of Battle, and that gave me the idea to make a tournament where individual moves decide the end of the battle rather than how your army composition compares to each other and what asymmetries does that create. So that is why I have come up with the random symmetrical tournament that you can now join in the pinned comment. And so moving on, for the second game, we actually have a very interesting fight where blue seems to only have horse artilleries, a massive cavalry force, and some decent main infantry line. On the other hand, red has very heavily invested into a proper infantry line and some hobitzens. I kinda wish both armies were playing with the same army comp to see which one of them has truly the better skills, wink wink. But with these army compositions, red is pretty much forced to play defensive, while blue has to take some very aggressive moves to win this battle. In fact, let's start watching this battle, and I might try to stop this as less as possible. Now you can see how blue kinda develops their artillery on the flanks, very far away from the rest of their lines. And you can also see how blue's lines have split apart so significantly. In fact, blue has set up these artillery positions that basically are pretty much at a 45 angle position from their center, looking over at the enemy. And there you go, that is almost 90 degrees, a bit more, but it's fine. And so this is very significant, because if red was to form a line at the center to face blue's attack, then these artilleries will be able to damage far more units shooting from the side than if they were shooting from the front, as their trapezoid will be overlooking more units. But let's just go on with this battle, because we want to see more, we want to see how this plays out. We want to see if red can hold off blue's very ambitious attack. And indeed they engage their cavalry, but it may not be enough. Red is forced to allocate even more units to defend against blue's cavalry. And even though that they formed a shield with all these guards at the front on the center, because of the position of blue's artilleries, they are taking some massive orc damage. Look at that, red units haven't fought with the enemy yet, and they have already taken a significant damage to their orc, and that will carry on for the rest of the battle. and blue might be able to break red's center. Going on with the fight, blue's cavalry is now making some crazy moves, assaulting those hobbitsons that would have the chance to slow down blue's advance with some of that canister fire. That is now gone. There is nothing stopping blue, and red's line has crumbled. The battle for red is lost, all because blue was able to take these very strong artillery positions on the left and on the right. This has been a massive loss for red, and yet both players played rather well. To win this battle, red would have had to contest some of these artilleries on the flank somehow. To win this battle, red would have had to play some aggressive moves to threaten the safety of these artilleries on the flanks, and then they would have been able to force blue into an unfavorable position. And just before moving on to the most interesting game of the day, I want to raise awareness of something really deeply shocking. How did this happen? It would be amazing if we could get this to go up to at least this position. It will be so awesome. Otherwise we could move over here, move the other infantry over here, form a very strong shield wall. But if our enemy moves the surprising special move of invoking the TIE fighter, then we have to use our artillery to shoot that down, and then we could regain control of the battlefield. Or otherwise we could also just get this up to over here, you know, maybe. But now let's just go on to the third and final game. The great game of the great game played by the great game players. The battle between two really amazing players, one of them being the fourth best players in lines of battle. Now can you guess which side is the fourth best player? Because I will not tell for now. That should stay a mystery at this moment. And yet, look at this map. Who has the better starting grounds? Would you say blue? Would you say red? Well, blue does have this very nice hill that is very high, and it provides blue's artillery with a very clear view of the rest of the battle site, while red has this much slower hill which has the similar clarity, and this hill that is kinda packed with some forests. So artillery wise, blue has a better position. But what about the rest of this battle? Now to best understand it, we should let this play out for a bit longer. And let's just watch how each side deploys. Red chooses this hill on the left that has the similar amount of clarity as blue's hill. And I would like to point out something very interesting. While blue only sends a portion of his army into the town, red actually sends most of their army to contest them there. And red has a very nice idea over there. After all, defeating your enemy in detail would be amazing for you. However, what they fail to foresee is how blue is intending to move their troops across the river, creating a very powerful threat against red. Look, red has managed to wear down these frontal units quite significantly, while they only lost a few of their men, but now they are being threatened from two sides. And right now blue has the more developed and the stronger position. This cavalry attack on the top is really powerful if blue plays it well. The only thing going right for red outside the center engagement is their cavalry threat on the right, but it would be very easy for blue to protect their artillery with some proper garrisoning. But so let's just see how this continues to play out. And look at that, blue has mismanaged their infantry somehow. For some reason they pulled back with their infantry and their cannons got exposed, letting the enemy cavalry to take some bites of the artillery and to even destroy them. They've tried to fix their mistake, but it was way too late. One of blue's artillery is down and the second one is also taking some heavy biting. At the same time, blue tried with the attack of their own, but this seems to be less successful so far. And so, due to a simple mistake, red may have gained the upper hand in this battle. Also, look at this infantry on the left that managed to develop themselves so much that they are able to deal some double damage to these units over here. While red also has the quality advantage, they are about to win on this part of the front if blue doesn't play something amazing and crazy. However, on the right, red is unable to adapt to blue's flanking maneuver, and now they are taking possibly up to 4 times double damage over here on this part of the front, and they are just continuously getting pushed back forth and forth more and more. Not to mention how blue has a quality advantage on this small part of the center. They could abuse that to break through, and surely enough they do. And now there is a back and forth fighting. Blue is rotating their weakened troops out of the front line to let them collect their breath and collect some orc to continue the fighting in a better position later on, while red has to commit all of their troops on the front line at all times to have a chance of beating off red's infantry. And amazingly enough, red has also mismanaged their own garrisoning, because blue was able to disable all 3 of their artilleries. And also look at this sandwich. This is the largest sandwich I have ever seen, and this was made by the 4th best lines of battle player. One of the most goofiest positions ever, the 6-layered sandwich, where almost all units are getting some back shots from the unit behind them, except for one unit. Blue's guard is the only one that isn't getting some fire from behind, and therefore they are more likely to win this engagement than red is. And whoever wins in the Great Hamburger wins the battle. However, hope shines on red at last, because look at this amazing inflankment of blue's units. Blue's units take some massive enfilade damage. Enfilade damage is when your units get shot from the side. They take plus 25% damage. So red might just be able to defeat blue's units on the right. And so let's see who wins the Great Hamburger engagement. Look at that. Red is just losing orcs so fast. One of blue's units broke on the center, but now they have the upper hand with these friendly units joining into the fight. And surely enough, blue has won the Great Sandwich engagement, and they are also pushing on the right, and at this point red has resigned. All hail the champion.